Well, that now the 5 permanent members of the UN Security Council, including the U.S. and Russia, meeting this hour in New York as Russia delivers its plan to place serious chemical weapons under international control. It comes ahead of a planned meeting tomorrow between Secretary of State John Kerry and his counterpart in Geneva. And in some technical experts, and the White House says this whole process could take some time. To Arizona Republican Senator John McCAIN, who thinks this could also be a Russian plan to stall things. Senator, good to have you.
Thank you, Neil. And by the way, I really agree with what Rudy Giuliani, my favorite mayor, had to say just a few minutes ago.
Yeah, you know, it makes a lot of sense to talk about if you're going to do something, do it. And the dilly-dallying, or however you want to explain it, has emboldened the enemy, you could say, giving them time to certainly hide things and do things. But to the mayor's greater points about what we do now, what do we do now?
Well, yeah, to the mayor's point, the old Napoleon line, if you say you're going to take Vienna. And I've never in history heard of a president of the United States who said he was going to take military action and then said he was going to go seek the agreement of Congress.
Why do you think he did that, Senator? You've probably addressed this elsewhere, but I want to pick your brain on that, because it does. A lot of people are wondering, he seemed to be ready for a unilateral move. He was going to do it, and then he argued we didn't have the legal bounds to do it. He didn't. Why?
I don't know, except that it's been widely written about in the media that he took a 45-minute walk with his chief of staff and then came in to meet with his national security team and told them that he was going to go to Congress for approval. Now, some say that the turn down by the British Parliament of David Cameron's proposal had some effect on that. Frankly, I don't know, but it put him in a very difficult position, to say the least. And now, getting back to the Russians a second. Neil, the Russians have been supplying the Syrians for years, and in the last year they've stepped up those supplies dramatically. You know, about a year ago, Hezbollah, 5,000 of them came in at the command of the Iranians. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard stepped up their support. The Russians dramatically increased their supplies, and it shifted the momentum on the battlefield away from the Free Syrian Army to Bashar al-Assad. That's just the facts on the ground. But this chemical attack shows that there was an area that Bashar al-Assad felt was so important in the grand scheme of his strategy that he was willing to use large amounts of chemical weapons. He'd used small amounts before. So now enter the Russians, only by accident, because John Kerry, in answer to a question, as you know, said, oh yeah, they could get rid of all their chemical weapons and that could prevent a U.S. attack, but they won't do it. Clearly indicating that it had not been the subject of negotiations before. Old Lavrov, one thing you got to give him credit for, he's a wily old fox. He grabs a hold of this, and now the Russians are supposed to be the ones who are telling us that they would be in charge, disarming the guy they are arming? That is a very difficult one to rationalize. So here we are with members of Congress unconvinced when the Secretary of State said any attack would be unbelievably small. What does that mean? You know, we bombed Kosovo 78 days before we finally prevailed there. So I think Americans are confused. And the president last night, although he made an emotional case about these terrible, horrible things that are inflicted on children, did not articulate a plan or a strategy. And I think a lot of Americans not only were not convinced, I think they were confused.
All right, well, I'm confused using chemical weapons as the rationale for getting involved in the first place. As you know, Senator, you and I have chatted about this, better than 100,000 Syrians were butchered by other, I guess, more conventional means, bullets, bombs, knifings. But we drew the line at chemical weapons. Do you think that's a fair way to go about this, that chemical weapons is a different standard? Say nothing of the 1,700 who were killed presumably by chemical weapons, and not the 100,000 who were killed by more conventional means. Couldn't rogue dictators around the world interpret this as a sign, well, next time I shoot them, I won't gas them?
Yeah, the red line turned out to be a green light. Rape, torture, murder. These are the indoctrination that defectors from Bashar Assad's army tell us is their doctrine. Now that is different from random acts of horrible, unacceptable violence perpetrated by some of those who are fighting against Bashar Assad, and those atrocities are condemned by the Free Syrian Army and the Syrian National Council. So there's no doubt that terror was part of the strategy of Bashar Assad to cow his people. So 100,000, the president, and maybe it was by accident, maybe it was by design, said that it would be a, quote, red line. And then he was stuck with those words, and we're trying to convince the American people that we're going to take these actions because Bashar Assad violated a chemical weapons treaty.
But now we're not, right? It looks like we're not. Either Russia has provided a fig leaf to go ahead and not do that. But you think that would be a mistake, right?
I think the best way to bring this thing to an end is to get the Free Syrian Army the weapons they need. And if you give me a second to say, look, there is al-Nusra, there's al-Qaeda. They are there in Syria, and their numbers are growing larger. But still, the preponderance of the fighting is being done by the Free Syrian Army, who are moderates. The people of Syria are moderates. They will not be governed by al-Nusra or al-Qaeda. And so to somehow say that this is a conflict which has been dominated by al-Qaeda, that is absolutely false.
But how do you know
al-Qaeda won't?
How do you know al-Qaeda won't take advantage of it? So?
I think they will take advantage of it, but I think the Syrian people will reject them, and I think the Free Syrian Army can be strong enough. Look, there are no good options now. 2 years ago, if we'd have helped these people, he'd be gone now, and it's going to be very, very tough. But the status quo, where Bashar Assad has the advantage and continues the killing fields that Syria has turned into, is obviously the least acceptable option. And I don't pretend that it's going to be easy, but I do pretend that to arm the Free Syrian Army and give them the chance to succeed is the only way that Bashar Assad is going to have a negotiated departure.
Senator John McCain, thank you, sir.
Thank you.